authorized to fire at will.
Hey, this is going to be brief. The video that you are about to watch is from February of 2021 and was subsequently taken down and deleted when I came under constitutional assault from Sheriff Kevin Torgerson of Olmsted County, along with his Chief Deputy Brian Howard, Chief Deputy of Detention Services, when they placed me under internal investigation. They gave me a list of videos that I needed to delete or remove, and I went above and beyond and deleted or set to private pretty much everything that pertained to Kelly Don Martinez of the Albert Lee City Attorney's Office. The reason why I am putting this back up is because I have filed a formal request for all of my data and anything included in my personnel jacket up to and including everything to do with the internal investigation. One of the conclusions of the investigation that was conducted by the Olmsted County Sheriff's Office against me was that I endangered investigators, law enforcement agents for the state of Minnesota by showing their visages in the video you are about to watch. The implication was that somehow I used my knowledge or insider information to expose these individuals and put them at harm, thereby hindering their safety and their ability to conduct undercover investigations. While I do not believe that they were ever in danger, I do believe that they perceived my activities as being somehow dangerous to their ability to conduct clandestine, illegal, unconstitutional investigations into business owners. When you are an undercover state agent, a spy for the state, let's be frank about that. When you are in the position of spying on behalf of the state at all of her levels, be it the municipal level, the county level, the state level, or the federal level, when you spy for the state and you claim that you're doing it for the good of society and you come in undercover, you bring upon yourself the risk of being exposed. The only reason I was able to ascertain the identity in particular of one of the investigators that you will see in this video is because the investigator was a moron. And I was able to take the report that was sent to me by Lisa Hanson of Albert Lee and piece it together with a video that I shot from that night. At no time did I enter into any kind of illegal activity where I used information that I was privy to because of my position as a deputy working for Olmsted County, and subsequently used that information to expose these people. These people expose themselves. The other thing that you will see as well is that it is in this video where I call out Chief J.D. Carlson, who is the chief of police for the director of public safety for Albert Lee. And it was that process by which I called him out, where he basically accused me through the private investigator attorney, Michelle Soldo, out of the Twin Cities, of attempting to blackmail him, where when I called him and left him a voicemail saying, I would like to give you an opportunity to comment before I release this story, and even be maybe willing to retract the use of a confidential, reliable informant in this situation. It's not illegal. What I did wasn't illegal. I was doing the job of a journalist. And as a journalist, as a person who is actually doing journalistic work in an independent media format, I was able to ascertain many things. The one thing that I got wrong in the video was identifying the confidential, reliable informant. I misidentified the confidential, reliable informant as a CRI when it was another undercover agent for the state at one of her levels. And I didn't identify them. I just had their picture. I'm sorry, you fat, smug piece of crap. When you show up at a peaceful protest that's posted as a peaceful protest, you put yourself at risk of being identified. You got identified. You don't get to claim, oh, he hurt me. Oh, he's doing damage to me. I did nothing wrong. And I stand on the First Amendment for this. So as you watch this, keep in mind that this information is what was used to accuse me of potentially illegal activities. If they had me on something, if the Olmsted County Sheriff's Office had me on something, they wouldn't have offered me a settlement. If Olmsted County had me on something, they would not have been the first to offer settlements. They knew they were wrong. They knew they were wrong. With that in mind, please watch the following video and make sure that people understand the state is not on your side, and whatever power they have, they will use against you because the state despises you. Sic semper tyrannis.
We are go for liftoff in T-minus 30. Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment. Secondary guidance systems engaged.
So, thanks for stopping by the Minnesota Black Robe Regiment channel once again. This is going to be yet another video in my series about the interchange in Albert Lea, Minnesota. Some of you may remember a couple of months ago I interviewed Lisa Hanson, the owner and proprietor of the Interchange Coffee and Wine Bistro there. Subsequent to that interview, Lisa had continued to openly and proudly defy Governor Walz, and many of us supported her. Now, just because we support her doesn't mean that we're right in and of itself. As I told someone recently, we need to have a subjective standard by which we judge. Not a subjective standard, but an objective standard by which we judge what is truly right and wrong when it comes to law and legal measures. And I believe that Lisa has the Constitution firmly on her side, because the Constitution is the objective standard for how we gauge and judge laws here in the United States. It's not based on how we feel in a moment. It's not based on what the masses say. It's based on what the founding fathers, every one of them a man. Sorry, my friends that don't like that, every one of them was a man. That's why we refer to them as the founding fathers. Most people today really believe that we rule, that we enforce law or pass law based on mob rule, and that's simply not true. So where am I going with this? Well, for one, Lisa was how should we say? Lisa was charged criminally in court. In kind of a sneaky, underhanded way, the city attorney, Kelly Martinez, brought charges against Lisa. When she came for one hearing, they escorted her into another courtroom, and they charged her criminally with no warning. And there again, criminal charges often come with no warning. I mean, Lisa knew what she was doing. She knew the risk that she was running, and she'll admit that. But the charges were really, they're based on laziness. Every charge that she's been charged with has been a violation of state statute 12.45, which is the chapter 12 is about executive orders and emergency powers and whatnot. And if you're really into that, it's some interesting reading. There's some things in there that are compelling and concerning, and are very clear about what the government of the state of Minnesota can and cannot do to you if you refuse to comply with prescribed medical treatments, like vaccinations and whatnot. But Lisa's being charged in particular with failing to abide by a governor's executive orders as it applies to a state of emergency in the state of Minnesota. So yes, it's on the books. Now remember, just because a law is on the books does not mean it's constitutional, does not mean it's lawful. It just means it hasn't been challenged yet in ultimately the Supreme Court. So we have to keep that in mind. And so when I say some of this has been an act of laziness, I want to say that the state investigators that are investigating Lisa and at the orders of Keith Ellison and Governor Tim Walz. Now I want you to let that sink in. Here's a strong, independent, business-owning woman in the city of Albert Lea, tiny. I wouldn't say it's an inconsequential city. Obviously, it's not. Every city in the greater part of Minnesota, rocks and cows country. Thank you, Governor Walz. Every city is important. But in the grand scheme of things, with as large as Albert Lea is, I think it's lucky if it tops 18,000, 18,500. It's not a hotbed of urban activity where people are just intermixing and spreading the coof all over the place. It's just not happening. Now they claim, oh well, we've had a major outbreak. Compared to what? Okay, for Freeborn County, maybe it's a major outbreak. For Albert Lea, it's a major outbreak. I mean, compared to other places, it's nothing. There again, for a virus that has a better than 97% survival rate, the coof is just really not something that we should be all that stressed out about. Now, that being said, some of the investigation on this has just been stellar. Just absolutely amazing. I would like to commend especially Carla Jinkota. I don't know. She's a licensed law enforcement officer from the Minnesota Department of Public Safety, basically the Minnesota State Patrol. She works in the Alcohol and Gambling Enforcement Division. And she goes through and she writes a report. These are all for charges for from the 15th of December on, where Lisa announced that she would be opening her business in defiance of the governor's orders, telling her it had to be closed in-person dining. Some of this investigatory work this had to have been incredibly stressful for some of these. I don't know if they're going to be able to survive the trauma, in one case, of walking by a business. Is that what passes for law enforcement investigation in the state of Minnesota now, folks? In one case, let's see, who is it here? Inspector Finkenbeiner. Inspector Finkenbeiner. Fink. Conducted an executive order compliance check at the Interchange Wine and Coffee Bistro on December 19th of 2020 at 11:15 a.m. You know, that's when all the, really dangerous criminals hang out. He walked by on the sidewalk and observed the interior of the interchange. He observed patrons entering into the establishment and patrons inside sitting at tables who appeared to be consuming beverages. The horror, the absolute shock and horror that Inspector Finkenbeiner must have, I don't know how he survived that encounter. I'm imagining he probably needed a lot of counseling afterwards to experience such trauma and such a bloodbath. And honestly, I mean, Lisa, you are a criminal of the first rate that you would allow people to drink beverages at 11:15 in your business. Lisa, we've experienced a lot of trauma in the United States. We've experienced a lot of traumatic incidences. I mean, we've survived September 11th of 2001. We survived Sandy Hook. We survived Columbine. We survived Virginia Tech. We survived Las Vegas, the shooting there at the concert. Lisa, you should be ashamed of yourself. Absolutely 100% ashamed of yourself that you would allow such a tragic thing to happen in your business at 11:15 in the morning, that an agent had to walk by and observe that several patrons drinking beverages. I personally would like to offer to you, Inspector Finkenbeiner, I would like to offer to you my personal condolences for the tragedy that you experienced that day, and I would like to know if there's anything I could do. Could we help you find counseling for that traumatic experience? And here's another one. And this one, my heart also goes out to Carla. Carla, this had been terribly hard on you. On or about December 23rd, 2020 at 9 a.m. in a KIMT3 video, defendants stated, "We are still open for business. We are continuing to operate as normal." The video shows defendant inside the interchange. It also shows patrons sitting at tables inside the interchange who appear to be consuming food and beverages. Carla, was that difficult for you? I mean, one, the stress of having to find a news report about this. Carla, are you okay? Have you reached out to your safety lines? Carla? Have you checked into getting yourself some help for dealing with that trauma? Here's another one, Carla. This has got to be very difficult for you, Carla. On or about January 3rd of 2021 at 3:22 p.m. Wasn't it about time for you to go home at 3:22, Carla? I mean, this had to have been very difficult for you. I mean, you're pushing up on that window of like rush hour time and getting yourself a coffee on the way home. I mean, this had to have been terribly tragic. Like, you had to have been really pushing the window for getting out of work at time. The interchange began live streaming via Facebook. That is tragic. Lisa, what are you doing? Are you kidding me? You live streamed on Facebook? The interchange began live streaming via Facebook the interior of its business. Agent Giancata Carla watched the video and noted the video documented patrons sitting at tables inside who appeared to be consuming food and beverages. I am verklempt. The video shows males playing live music inside of the establishment. The evil that Lisa has allowed to happen in her business. Lisa Hanson, I am disgusted that you would allow this to happen. People playing music and entertaining one another and enjoying themselves inside of your business. How dare you, woman? How dare you? But it doesn't stop there, folks. We're going to look at another one. Dear Ms. Hanson, and these are more recent charges. These were charges that were brought up in court again. Dear Ms. Hanson, please take notice. The city of Albert Lea has reason to believe Melissa Hanson, owner of MLH Enterprises, operating in yada yada yada, one acts with unreasonable injures. You're being charged with acts which unreasonable injures or endangers the safety and health of a considerable number of people in the violation of Minnesota State Statute 609.74, Subdivision 2, almost like needlessly hitting a panic alarm in the city attorney's office when there's literally no danger. Specifically ignoring the public health risk provided by or posed by COOF by providing on-premise consumption of food and beverages, allowing the public to enter the establishment beyond the restrictions imposed, failing to mandate masks, and failing to maintain 6 feet of social distancing between patrons from different households in violation of Executive Order 20-99, 20-103, and 21-01, and violating local or state business licensing regulations, specifically serving of food and beverages without a license as required by Minnesota Statute 157.16. Now, this event that they're referring to is an event that Lisa was holding, and it was not an event. It was a protest. It was labeled as a protest, okay? Some of these charges, they keep going back over and over and over again, just keep going back to all these different events. They have KAAL. I mean, that is some stellar detective work too by the state of Minnesota's investigators here. Over and over and over again, they list all these charges, right? One of my favorites, this one right here, this is atrocious. On January, it's not going to highlight for me. Not the way I want. On January 22nd, 2021, the Interchange posted on social media, "Time for a warm-up. Let one of our baristas make you a delicious latte today. Open 7:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. You should be ashamed, Lisa. Ashamed. Ashamed, I tell you. Now, here's where we really start to get, into the thick of it. Nail it to the walls, reopen Minnesota party. No reservation needed. This was a protest, okay? We see that it's called a party, but it was a protest. It was a protest, right? Remember the First Amendment, Melissa Hanson? How dare you violate the first? Oh, wait. Lisa, you were exercising your First Amendment right to peacefully protest. My rebuke should be for Kelly Martinez. Kelly Martinez, do you remember the oath that you took as a city attorney to keep your oath to defend the Constitution? Lisa was protesting the governor. That was the whole point of her event, was to protest against the governor's mandates, to protest against the governor's, shall we say, high-handed overreach. Now, we have something else here that takes place. One of these, by the way, there was a paid confidential informant who they used to infiltrate the crime syndicate of the Interchange. And we just need to be very clear here. This is a crime syndicate, okay? I mean, we're talking like Al Capone level of crime here. So they used a paid confidential informant. So what do you need to know about paid confidential informants in the state of Minnesota? Well, for the most part, paid confidential informants are criminals, okay? They're people who have been sought out by law enforcement to do the dirty work of getting the dirt on somebody, right? And so oftentimes this paid confidential informant will get paid to go in and gather evidence. But the irony of it is that, really, Lisa's not been hiding any of this stuff. What did they have to send a paid confidential informant? I wish I could find it. We have we have an officer identified. Officer Ahart identifies herself as in doing an investigation on January 29th, 2021. And she observes the business. She drives by, she stops, she listens in on some conversations, which, is fine. She's an investigator, she's an agent. She has a right to do that. She has a responsibility, should we say. And she describes in detail an event that took place. At 10:24 p.m., Officer Ahart approached the front of the interchange to enter the bar. The same white male employee described above was being confronted by a white male patron outside. The white male patron was complaining, and I have it on good authority that Lisa had no employees that night. They were all volunteers who were there as part of the protest. It was a protest. It was a First Amendment protest. Okay? Can we just keep that in mind? It was a protest. The governor cannot restrict a protest. It doesn't matter if it's in a building or outside of a building. It doesn't matter if it's on state property or on somebody's private property. It doesn't matter if it's in a building that happens to be owned by the city of Albert Lea, but leased to a private business. No governing authority can restrict protests that are peaceable. None. None. This event was a protest, and there were many people there who were legally and lawfully assembling according to the First Amendment, according to the Bill of Rights, according to the Constitution of the United States of Minnesota. These people were gathering, not as employees, but as peaceful protesters to protest against what they believe and are convinced, according to the Constitution, are major violations of the Constitution by Governor Walz, Keith Ellison, and Kelly Martinez, and other agents of the state who are working in conjunction and collusion to shut down people's freedom to protest. Even though the governor's executive orders say nothing should be construed by anybody that is an agent of the state or in law enforcement to be meant to infringe on anyone's constitutional rights. But yet here we are, seeing people infringe on constitutional rights. So what do we have? We have this woman describing this female officer, this female agent describing this interaction between a white male patron who's complaining about racism, who's complaining about not being able to get in, who's complaining that the front door is locked from the outside, not the inside. And she goes on to say that she interrupts and comes in. Well, guess what we have? What do we have? We have proof, should we say. So pay close attention here. What you're going to see is proof that the state will do whatever it needs to do in its fight against constitutionally compliant, patriotic Americans, especially business owners who don't toe the approved line.
How's that racism?
This blurred image right here, and we'll get to a better view. This is Agent Ahart.
I will wait and I can't come in. You can come in. Oh, we just asked. With the door locked.
Take a good look. There she is. She's acting as if she's on the phone. Excuse me. She's acting as if she's on the phone, but she's not. She's not on the phone. She's using her phone. She's recording surreptitiously. And also note, the individual that I'm talking to is complaining, wants to come in for free food and drink, which we're not serving anymore. But he's wearing a mask. And what's the agent of the state in here doing? It's been locked all night, sir.
I'm sorry about that.
It's been locked all night.
Respectively.
Yep, that's what it says.
Right on.
So if you want,
I respect what you're doing, but it is wrong.
how's it wrong, sir?
Because the door was locked.
I guess I don't understand how the door being locked is wrong. Yeah, absolutely. No more food or drink after 10, but there's still music. Yep, there's still music and cleanup crew. This is an agent of the state. Just keep that in mind. An agent of the state that's working to disrupt a protest. This is a protest. This is not business. This is protest. No money's changing hands. Nobody is doing anything by way of commerce. This is strictly a protest. There's music at the protest. There are people at the protest protesting. It's a peaceable protest. Yes, it's in violation of what the governor said. Guess why? Because it's a protest. Agent Ahart is working as a subversive agent of the state to gather video of people protesting against the governor. It's a violation of her constitutional duty. Can I come in? I'm cold. That's the agent. Yeah, absolutely. No more food or drink after 10. Very clear. No more food or drink is being served after 10. And there again, it wasn't being served. It was being offered Agent as a way of protest. Never puts on a facial covering. The coof is so deadly, we have to social distance and we have to have our faces covered. But Agent Ahart's not wearing a mask. Why is that? I thought the coof was deadly. And also note, no one that night was being told they couldn't wear a mask. Many people came in with masks on. Many people came in without masks on. Agent Ahart never puts a mask on. And therein lies the rub. The state believes it's above its own mandates. The state believes it doesn't have to follow its own rules. The state, Kelly Martinez, Tim Walz, Keith Ellison, Carla, Agent Ahart. On January 29th at 2021 at 10:34, Albert Lea Police Department received an email from a confidential, reliable informant stating, it wasn't a paid informant, a confidential, reliable informant stating that photos and videos were taken inside. The CRI was allowed in. He stated there were a lot of people inside. He ordered and was served pizza provided by the interchange. We know who this person was as well. Numerous violations of the Constitution here. It was a protest. It was not business. People were gathering to protest against what they believe, according to the Constitution, are the governor's overreach. The state investigated a protest. The state is charging Lisa Hanson for holding a protest. What's the point of a protest if you can't protest without state approval? Kelly Martinez, you have violated your constitutional oath. You understand that? You swore an oath as a city attorney of Albert Lea to uphold the Constitution and protect it from enemies, both foreign and domestic, and you have proven yourself to be an enemy domestic. You sent and took and accepted investigative work that was directed against people who were peacefully protesting according to the First Amendment and are now using that information to charge somebody with a crime, even though you cannot be charged with a crime when you are following the Constitution. It was a protest, Kelly Martinez. And I want to bring up something else that Kelly Martinez did when she had Lisa Hanson in court. Lisa's pro se. She's representing herself. She has a aide to counsel that backs her up on some stuff, but for the most part, Lisa's representing herself. And here's what Kelly Martinez has done. The last time that she and Lisa were in court together, it was on Zoom. And Lisa brings up the Constitution at one point, and witnesses in the Zoom meeting who watch this happen. Kelly Martinez rolls her eyes and shakes her head because Lisa Hanson dared to bring up the Constitution. Now, Kelly Martinez, whether or not you agree with the position that Lisa's taking, the last thing you should be doing as a public servant who swore an oath to the Constitution of the United States to uphold it and to keep it and defend it from enemies, both foreign and domestic, it should be rolling your eyes and shaking your head in a sarcastic way. Here's something else that she did. Kelly Martinez presents to the judge, Your Honor, I have here, and she begins to talk about a phone call that she had, or tries to talk about a phone call that she had with Lisa Hanson's daughter-in-law. Lisa rightfully and rightly offered an objection very vigorously 3 times, and the judge didn't overrule her, but granted the objection and stopped the city attorney from bringing in hearsay evidence that had nothing to do with anything. Lisa Hanson's daughter has no bearing on this situation, or excuse me, her daughter-in-law has no bearing on this situation. The city attorney, Kelly Martinez, had no right, she had no business to treat Michaela Hanson as a witness in this situation. None. But she was willing to do it because it worked in her to her advantage. Michaela Hanson has received no harm in this situation, none. She's not been harmed by this. She's not a witness. She is not, and first of all, even if she were, it was an arraignment. You don't present witnesses at an arraignment. And you don't present the testimony of a witness who was not a victim. Michaela Hanson is not a victim. City of Albert Lea is not a victim. The people of Albert Lea are not a victim. Lisa Hanson is not a syndicate criminal. She's not. A year ago, this month, she was an upstanding member of the community, a member of the Chamber of Commerce, who had done nothing but serve the people of Albert Lea for the entire time that she's lived there. You can't find a soul prior to all of this that would have badmouthed Lisa Hanson. I mean, I'm sure there's somebody somewhere who would have. And we all have people like that in our lives. This is all predicated on fabricated desire to control people over the coof. And Kelly Martinez will stoop to whatever level she has to. She will rely on confidential, reliable informants who most often get some sort of stipend or kickback for doing what they do. I misspoke earlier and said paid confidential informant. That's not the way I should have said it. It's confidentially reliable informant. More often than not, they are coming from the criminal class and they're being offered something to investigate. And why? Because it serves the purpose of the state. Lisa Hanson is not an enemy of the state. She's not an enemy of the city of Albert Lea or the people. Kelly Martinez is just trying to strike her down because guess what? Lisa has a lease with the city for the building and now the city wants it back. This is why the Constitution and the Bill of Rights exist, people. If it doesn't cover situations like this, then we might as well just take it, crumple it up into a ball, and be done with it. When the people fear the government, there's tyranny. But when the government fear the people, there is liberty. We need to remember that. 6 Semper Tyrannis.